At the moment, we'll give people 3 minutes, but if there happens to be a lot of people, we'll have to cut it back down to 2 minutes. So we'll start with Cormac, and Cormac is going to be speaking kind of in the Catholicism category. So Cormac, when you're ready.
I'd like to speak kind of in defence of the Catholic Church, why I believe it's a force for good in the world. But I would like to say I am also a secularist in that I believe that no matter how great I think the Catholic Church, how good I think it is, I don't think that I would have the right to tell everybody in the state to make the state a Catholic state. I do believe in a separation of church and state. So I'd just like to say how one of the speakers brought up how a new atheism dislikes how religion treats humans as special and dominion over the earth. And how this would encourage people more growth, more consumption. Humans are so amazing, we deserve to take over this entire earth. What I'd say as well, most religions also have a huge element of sacrifice or restraint in it. You see kind of the huge prominence given to fasting in both Islam and in Catholicism. And I would say that a religion can encourage people to treat the earth with more respect. That it can do it. There's a very interesting thing on The Guardian where they went to Flushing in New York, which was the most religiously diverse section of the United States, and inspiration that people got from religion to reduce their pollution and clean up their environment. I think that religion can be a great force for good. It inspires people to look beyond themselves and to help other people. You see, throughout history, while undoubtedly people have been inspired by religion to do great wrongs, you see also the potential that exists in people like Martin Luther King, who take their religion as an inspiration to do great good. And just an interesting thing that I believe when Christians came to Ireland at first, they changed their Breton law that was there to remove some elements of the class divide. The original Christians coming to Ireland. And I would say as well, talk about secular countries and how they generally have happier people. I'm just wondering if it's not necessarily being caused by secularism, possibly, I don't know, but possibly it may be that countries, say, with less class divides, less inequality, happen to be both happier and secularist. I don't know whether it's necessarily causation, but that's what I'd say.
I'll just ask everyone to continue taking names if they now, from the next category, we'll have a speaker in favour of Islam. So Omar.
Can I speak second after Muslim? He's second after me.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right?
Yeah, please start. No, start.
Okay, I have a question. More of a question than a comment. Question for Michael. If obviously what you're trying to say is that society would be better off without religion. Now, a lot of morals and social standards have been taken from religion over the past 1,000 years or whatever, and it's all compiled down to kind of the social morality of the current age. Things that different religions go in terms of adultery, alcohol, different things that have been banned in certain religions, and we've taken the good and the bad out of it, generally speaking. If you would take religion out, what would be the force? What would tell us what's good and bad? In the sense that you're trying to say that we should separate the state from the religion. Now, I've heard a lot of atheists answer this, and they use social consensus. But you can't use general social consensus because in, for example, Nazi Germany, they thought it was alright to kill 6 million Jews, for example. Thank you.
We'll take someone from the secularist category, Ben Nolan.
The reason I would be in favour of secularism, as the third speaker said, that it would take, I suppose, the religious aspect out of our governments, which needs to happen because I'm an activist myself. I'm a human rights activist, I'm an equal rights activist, and an LGBT rights activist. And I'll tell you this much. In regards to having religion still making an impact on governments, etc., it's making it very, very hard for people to have equal rights. You see that across the board, right? Now, the reason why I think it would be great is because, as the third speaker mentioned, that you get, hopefully, cripple homophobia, get rid of it, because as we all know, it's Ireland, right? It's Catholic Ireland. I know first speaker mentioned, anti-Catholic Ireland. I don't think that's a major factor. I do not think that's happening as it stands, because, okay, yeah, there is this every case, left, right, centre, about priests and child abuse. Yeah, that's against priests. That's not actually against Catholicism. I don't think it is. That's my own opinion, right? Because there are still people in Ireland who believe in Catholicism to the very end, the absolute end. I'm usually very spontaneous with these kind of things, so I usually just ramble off a lot of things that come to my head. So if I stop making sense, whatever, just tell me to be quiet. But yeah, no, I'm just in favour of secularism because it'll, I suppose, give a fighting chance to all the minorities to believe in what they want to believe in, do what they like with do with their life what they want, without having a fear of, oh, if I do this, oh, there might be a ban against me doing this, or if I stand up for this, someone might tell me, oh no, you can't do that because that's against this religious belief, so on and so forth. That's all really I've got to say about it, but yeah, I'm in favour of a secular state because it gives a fair fighting chance to everyone. Thanks.
We'll now take someone from the delusional category, Susan William.
To your religious belief. I think that's when it goes too far. And I do think then in the public sphere there is a role for religious representatives to come out and say this is a fundamental part of our religion, we want to have a debate about this in the public sphere, and what if any role can the state say in regulating our religious belief when it enters the public sphere. And I think it's on those kinds of issues that in the sorry to keep repeating public sphere, but it's in those kinds of issues that religions and religious representatives have a role to play in informing that debate and ensuring that the debate happens, because what we're finding within these societies where secularism is having such a huge impact on these, whether they're majorities or minorities of religious beliefs in those societies, they're having a substantial impact on people. They're not happy about it, and they want to make these representations, and they want to feel that their beliefs will be respected by a secularist government, where they will feel that their arguments are being heard, and that their values will be respected when they make the argument, because of my religious belief, I want to do this. That's an argument that will be listened to by a secularist government, and that will have weight with them, rather than just feeling that the secularist government will say to them, no, you're arguing on a religious basis, we're secularists, we don't want to hear those kinds of arguments. Also, I do think that religion has a role to play in the public sphere for other reasons. As the speaker who spoke for Islam mentioned, that religion can be a force for good in creating communities and family values, because people aren't really inherently good or bad, they're just inherently lazy. And we do kind of need sometimes a thought of an external force, whether it be the state or maybe God or whatever, that's going to push us to doing good things. And religions have been, religious groups have been traditionally very good at fostering a sense of community
didn't want to be cut out of the video, just come to myself with the camera and afterwards, and we'll cut you out. If anyone wants to speak, by the way, just put up your hand, and Cormac or Adam will come around to you. So we'll go back to the Islam category. So Omar, was it? Yeah.
Michael was actually a secularist. It's quite interesting to know that one of the leading humanists, probably the most intellectual humanist in this country, Professor Peter Simons, the head of the philosophy department at Trinity College, actually said last year in his speech that the world is actually a better place with religion as opposed to without religion. So I thought it was quite interesting to put up there. On the premise of secularism, if you look at it from a holistic perspective, it rests upon individualism. There's a problem with that because, number one, it focuses on individual rights and individual freedom. So, for example, it actually divorces social obligations that we as humanity have towards each other. So, for example, it's okay for me to be able to do this as long as, and I don't care what happens to someone else. And this is quite strange because one of the things that's allowed under a secular state is pornography. And an academic called Diane Russell actually has a publication on the linking of pornography and rape. And in 2000, this was published by Oxford University, one of its publications. She said that 65% of rapists were actually incited by non-violent pornography. And under a secular state such as France, there's 24,000 women that are raped every single year in France. So it's kind of strange how Sarkozy can be the flag bearer of women's rights and yet not help those women that actually do need the help. I'm also strange enough that his wife is actually an ex-nudist. But that being aside, another thing is under the Islamic, there's a lot of things that are mentioned in relation towards Islamic rule, especially in relation towards India. If that was the case, Muslims ruled India for 1,000 years. And if you look at right now, the vast majority of Indians are actually Hindus, not Muslims. So if they were subjugated, tortured, persecuted, why is that the case? Same with the Levant in the Middle East, same with Egypt. A lot of Coptic and other sects of Christianity are still preserved today. And another thing on an issue of enlightenment that Islam has brought forward, the British Medical Journal actually published that individual scholars and academics such as Ibn Nafis actually brought education of the blood circulatory system. This is 2 centuries before William Harvey even postulated this, and so on and so forth. So that's just one thing in relation to all secularism in Islam. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Omar for the speech, and because we'll go to the secularism category again, and we'll just do some more of those speakers. So Brian, whoever Brian is.
That'd be me.
Oh, okay. Will we put someone else before you, and then, or do you want to go?
No, it's fine. Just the idea that humans need religion to give us guidance and give us morals, I think, is a completely ridiculous statement. For example, humans as we exist now, we've existed as Homo sapiens for roughly 40,000, 50,000 years. So the contention being made is that if we existed as we do now for 50,000 years, for roughly 49,000 of those years, we had no morals, we were doomed to nothingness. And then all of a sudden, a deity decided to appear and give us guidance just randomly. That makes no sense. We are inherently moral beings. From the day we are born, we know what is right and what is wrong. It's a simple, very universal fact of being human. We know to do good and we know to do bad. And we make the choice ourselves. We don't need a deity, a supreme being, to tell us either way. But that's a statement. I have 2 questions. For Brendan, you stated that atheists have moved on from enlightening people. I think that's what you said. Atheists don't enlighten people anymore. Then how would you justify that statement with the fact that 93% of the National Academies of Science in America are atheists? They identify as atheists, and these are the best scientists in the world, arguably. For our second speaker, Adnan, you said that Islam brings peace and empowerment to people, but how do you justify that statement when the penalty for apostasy in Islam is death? And those are my two questions. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Brian for his speech, and we'll move to the Catholicism category. Vitalis Sada, sorry if I'm pronouncing people's names wrong.
Christianity in general, and what I'd like to remind people, it actually goes to what the previous speaker said. The origins of morality and all that, I don't know about the Eastern world, but in Europe anyway, they come from Christianity. Christianity was the first movement that came in and said we're all equal, and the rich people and the poor people, there should be no divide. Because beforehand, rich people could get away, literally could get away with murder, and there was nothing to do for it. And the idea of love thy neighbor and we are all equal and all that, they came first from Christianity. That is the reason. Our modern world morality, that is all based on that. That is where it came from. There are arguments that Catholicism, the Catholic Church, is not good. And I agree. I personally do not like the institution of church, and I think because Christianity is such a strong message and has a power to influence people so deeply. People who, like priests, they inherently have a lot of power because they bring this message. And power tends to corrupt people. So ever since the Middle Ages, with the indulgences in the Catholic Church, and then the persecution of heretics, the burning of witches, all that was said. That has nothing to do with the message of Christianity. That is people trying to keep in power Catholic men and who had a lot of power at the time, and they wanted to keep their power, instill fear in people, and that is not the message of Christianity. The message, the initial message of Christianity, what it's all about is loving your neighbor, helping everyone, and the fact that it was changed and became more perverse because the people who are supposed to be in the front lines and who are supposed to be promoting that message are instead damaging it and damaging the image of Christianity or the religion with the scandals in the church. It's simply terrible, and people lose faith in religion. Ultimately, the people who are supposed to be representing it are instead completely detrimental to the image of religion. And that is what I want to say. People shouldn't forget that people are not inherently moral, and you're not born knowing what is good and what is bad. It's something that your parents teach you, that their parents taught them. And it all started with Christianity and religion. That is where this message initially originated back in Israel. Thank you.
We move to the secularism category again. So if we ask Adam to speak.
I wanted to go at least one night without talking about this, but there's been a lot of talk about Jews tonight, so surprised you have one here today, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. To say that Europe gets its morals from Christianity and got everybody to be treating each other as equal, I'm sorry, nice try, but no, that's not true. The second speaker was right in saying that there was never a worse time for Jews than under Christian rule in Europe. I'm not talking about Nazi Germany right now. Nazi Germany lasted for 8 years, and then they got their asses handed to them by us, but still, the Christian church lasted for 2,000 years before that, and it was a continuous parade of persecution, pogroms, ghettoization, and terrible, terrible things. So I'm saying, no, we don't all get our morals innately, maybe not, but I can tell you that definitely people can be taught to hate, and they can be taught to hate Jews. And the Christian church did that for a very, very long time. For this first speaker, you didn't really talk so much about why secularism is bad, but I don't know, I just wanted to mention that your view of the social issues in Ireland and the way that Irish people kind of react to things just kind of reminds me of a Dylan Moran routine where he says, oh, it's fierce mild, because he's saying we shouldn't go to the Catholic side, we shouldn't go to the anti-Catholic side, so we'll just be stuck in the middle, just being suspicious of everyone. All right, on to the second speaker. Sorry, did anybody during the 8 years and when the Iraq War started think of America as a secular nation? Is that like a thing now? Is this something like new that I'm getting here? Because I definitely did not get that. You're right, there are a few secular states in America, and those are where I want to live. And I'm actually going to argue the fact that it's better for religious people if you want to live under a secular society, because you are not going to be ghettoized, you're not going to be forced into your own religion by your own community. You can do whatever you like in a secular society. And that's why I argue... Sorry? What?
Have you read the Constitution, American Constitution?
Yes, I can. Yes, I have, yeah.
Okay, what does it say about religion?
There's
a religious
it says no infringements upon religious belief. It does not say no public displays of religious belief. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm sorry, it's my turn to speak.
Right.
Sorry, I live in Boston, Massachusetts, where during holidays there are Jews dancing in the streets, there are Christmas Day parades, and there are Muslim public celebrations. These are things that happen in a secular state in America. It's not an atheist state. In terms of also, yes, it's true about the Crusades. The Muslims were much better to the Jews during the Crusades. These are all things. But I want to make it very, very clear. I don't want to live under anybody's protection. That is the easiest way. I'm not even going to talk about Jews during Nazi Germany, Germans under Nazi Germany, Russians under Communist Russia. The easiest way for a state to take away your rights is to say that this is for your own good, this is for your own protection. And that's exactly what I asked of a girl from Saudi Arabia who said she couldn't drive. She said, well, I just don't think America does enough to protect its women. Well, that's such a simple way of just waving it away. So I say thank you, but no. Yeah.
I'd like to thank Adam for his speech, and we'll move back to Simon O'Mahony. Simon.
Yeah, Mike, I suppose my comment goes towards what Mr. Rashid said. You mentioned that Islam enabled Muslims, Jews and Christians to live peaceably. I'm sure you're familiar with them. Forgive my pronunciation of your historian Isaac, who wrote Sirat Rasul Allah, a biography about Muhammad, and in it is recorded the acts of Muhammad, and in it are, and he's seen as a hero in this, and he tortures, or he orders the torture of men, and the assassination of Jews in Mecca, I believe. So we see that this supposed society where Christians, Jews, and Muslims can all live peaceably together. If Muslims, and I say this respectfully, if Muslims are obeying the Quran, this won't happen. If I can quote Surah 4:101, "For the unbelievers are unto you open enemies." So this doesn't speak of a society where we can all live peaceably. Can I say that for, I suppose, perhaps the Catholic Church in history, burning witches, the Crusades, that's, I suppose, opposed to the teachings of Jesus, who I believe is God incarnate. That is opposed to what the Bible teaches, and those aren't good examples. Whereas I believe the Twin Towers, that is consistent with what Muhammad teaches in the Quran. So that concludes what I have to say.
I'd like to thank Simon for his speech, and we'll now move back to the secularism category just so we cut down on some of those speakers as well. Can I call on Aaron Blake to speak?
First of all, I'd just like to speak in response to Brendan O'Neill, the first speaker. So an overused term I thought in your speech was anti-Catholicism in Ireland, and I disagree with that. I think it's, I don't know where the term is coined, but like most schools are still 90% Catholic, and the Catholic priest and religious scandal, that is still, although no light is shed upon priests that have nothing to do with that scandal, it is still something that comes out a lot and is a fact that can't be denied and was covered up by the church. So I suppose that would be an argument against the Catholic Church. So as well, I thought a lot of the way you use anti-Catholicism as a way in Ireland was exaggerating and kind of irrelevant to actual Catholicism, because just because someone is atheist doesn't mean they're anti-Catholic or that they're anti-any religion, and just because they're secular stance is the same way. It's a I thought you had a good point about using the same concepts for Catholicism years ago in Ireland that they're still using for the so-called anti-Catholicism in this Ireland. But at the same time, I don't think ultimately that Ireland is an anti-Catholic Ireland. Maybe that there's anti-Catholic people, but as a country, I don't think that it is. Just moving on to the response of the speaker for Islam. Just on the foundation of any religion, let alone just Islam, it is to say that a man came with, we'll say, a book or some sort of scripture to say, and gave reason, or gave some sort of, I wouldn't say logic, but some sort of reason to a being, and to the being of the world. But to say that, like, for that to come from a man, is that to say that it's just to be believed? I mean, anybody can say that. Doesn't mean that it's automatically to believe. And also, it just shows us cracks in any religious moral ground, because I mean, man is flawed. So who's to say that the man who thought up of religion is not to be flawed either? I mean, if there's no reason in logic for God other than man to say that there is. So I don't see Islam's relevance today then as opposed to as it was before. Maybe it was a force for good before, but today I think it's overridden by many other good things. With secularism, it's a lot of people think it's people being banned from expressing their religion. That's not that's wrong. It's as a lot of people will now know, that it's a separation of church and state. That doesn't mean that people don't have a moral guidance. It just means that they are separate from being suppressed by one belief and one way. So as well, I think that you're under the belief of an intelligent design with no evidence at all, and that there's a freedom in secularism, but with religion there's a lot more persecution. Now, I'm not saying that there is no persecution in secularism, but at the same time, I think it's a lot better than to have a one-way teaching or a one-way belief. So, thanks. That's why I want you to oppose this motion. Thanks.
I'd like to thank Adnan for speaking. We'll have another secularism speaker, and then we'll move back to the Islamic category. Joe Regan.
Hi. I believe in secularism for a simple reason. It's a common denominator for everyone. And there's a great kind of example within this room. We have people here from all faiths, from all imaginable faiths, and it's possible to have this discussion. In countries that are, I'll put it to you, the Islamic Republic of Iran, a discussion like this would not be possible. It wouldn't be possible. And the way this room is set up here, it would also not be possible. We see the girls, the young ladies here in this room, mixed with the young men. And I believe that these are small freedoms that are denied under the guise of religion. I'm also a firm believer in democracy. An absolute believer in democracy. Now, democracy is not possible within the constraints of a religion. It is a democracy within a religion, which means it can't be pluralist. It cannot be a pluralist society. Now, everybody that's sitting here is enjoying a democracy, a pluralist democracy. We're all sitting down here, we're having a discussion. This would not have been possible. I'm not just pointing to some of the Islamic states, but it would not have been possible in General Franco's Spain. It probably wouldn't have been possible in Mussolini's Italy. And these were not secular states. These were Catholic states. The reason why I say secularism is the only way forward, and I oppose the motion that religion is a power for the good. I want to coin a phrase. It's that, there are good people that will do good things. There are bad people that will do bad things. But it takes religion for a good person to do evil things. And that, unfortunately, has been proven time and time again on our planet. I won't go into the details of who I'm talking about, but I'm sure everybody here in the room could pick an example of what I'm talking about. And this is not directed towards Islam Christianity, Judaism, or any other ism. It's directed to all of them. Okay, I'll leave it go at that.
I'd like to thank Joe for his speech, and can I call on Murrell to speak on the motion?
I just think we have this, something that I found really confusing, where we were told that secularism protects us and that it gives people the democracy and the freedom of choice where we can express ourselves. And it was basically kind of coined as if it was a utopia where everyone could do what they wanted and no one would be limited or harmed or anything like that. When you say secularism, to me, the first country that comes to mind is France. France is right now, I'd say, the top secularist country that I can think of. And at the moment, France is the one country that has started the burqa ban. It is the one country that has said, I know better than those Muslim women, that they are oppressed. I'm the country that knows what's going on in their heads and that they are being forced to do something that they don't want. Also, we were told that secularism would admit when it's wrong. I can tell you I'm not oppressed. No, I'm not wearing the burqa because that's my choice. But if, for example, I had a friend who wanted to wear it, and she's like, yeah, that's what I want to do, and France comes along and says, no, you can't. I'm a secularist country. I know what's best for you. Where is France there admitting that it's wrong, that it doesn't know what's going on in this woman's head? It doesn't know that everything that the people in that country are thinking. Basically, just to kind of wrap it up, I just want to say that secularism, as a kind of a nice idea, yeah, but when you start to try to apply it, cracks will form. Because as humans, we are inherently flawed. We make mistakes. We are not perfect. That is the way we are. And so to think that we can create this absolute perfect society with no guidance, I think, is a little bit naive of us, to put it the best way. Which is why, for me, I think that religion is very important in giving us structure and giving us a way forward where we can be the best that we can be without kind of like limiting ourselves to kind of just blindly following. Because, for example, in Islam, it tells you two things. It doesn't say, right, this is what you have to do and don't think about it. It tells you to think. It tells you to go forward in science and try to understand what we have given you. So yeah, I'm just going to end it there. It's very short. But there you go.
I'd like to thank Miriam for her speech, and I'll call on Julie O'Shea.
Hi. So I have sort of a question that's, I'm sort of requesting a general clarification about it to me. And those are the terms of secularism versus non-secularism. Whether it is theocracy, perhaps, I'm not sure. But I mean, I guess I'll sort of define my understanding of secularism, and then I don't know if we're waiting until questions to the end, but I'd like someone to correct me and then you if you could. But I think it was put well by the American liberal John Rawls, and he said basically that he didn't call it a secular society, but that's what he's describing. He says basically that in modern liberal democracy, when we engage in public debate for laws, for a constitution, that there's sort of terms of the debate that are set. There are certain arguments that you can't put forward. And basically, there are people of many different faiths, people who disagree fundamentally on many things, not just religious matters, but also matters that have to do with sex or diet, it could be anything. That when we debate, we put the terms of debate in terms of sort of the reasonable terms of cooperation for free and equal people. So we talk a lot about rights, and just sort of about cooperation, about equal contribution of all citizens, sort of neutral terms like that. We don't talk about, for example, religious matters. So you can't take a passage out of Leviticus or the Hadith or Sharia law. So that means, for example, that we don't stone gay people to death. There are no laws forbidding you to leave one religion for another, or to leave religion for your religion. A lot of religious people seem to think that applying religious law means forbidding a right to divorce, which is basically denying So, I mean, I'm sort of asking the opponents of secularism, and you talk a lot about sort of the corrosive effects of atheism, it seems like, your religion. But are you really proposing theocracy? I mean, are you really proposing, in other words, taking a particular religious and just applying its writings and law? Just saying, Leviticus says stone gave people to death, so stone gave people to death. I mean, I think that's so. I mean, you spend a lot of time on sort of these negative attacks on your religion, but I mean, is that really what you're proposing? And if so, I think even most religious people would be opposed to that. I mean, that seems like kind of a ridiculous idea. And I think decent government does sort of work on the assumption that on fundamental matters of which we differ, especially religious matters, that we sort of use this neutral vocabulary, as Chairman also put it. Rights, freedoms, maybe entitlements to basic welfare, things that can sort of be put in non-religious terms. So yeah, I'm asking for that clarification. What is this theocracy alternative? What is the argument today?
Okay, address that in their closing statements. We'll just continue on with the audience participation. If we move on to Osama. Yep.
I would just like to start by saying the third speaker, who was in support of atheism, basically summarized Islam and Catholicism as basically reading between the lines, a bunch of morons who are there for the sole purpose of forbidding you your rights. Actually, religion is just there as a guideline to help you in your life, sometimes strict, but just for justice. As in sometimes for judging between a man and his woman, like if there was a case of divorce, or like any other cases. And in the so-called flawed men who created the religion, how could a man who wrote an also called flawed book that said things that have only been discovered lately by the scholars of the whole world, the smartest or the unknown ones?
Like a lot of what I was going to say was like a lot of what I'm going to say is like it's been said already. Even the main point of my speech is already been stolen. Even like that it was about like that the abuse of power. Like you see it all the time where dictators try to wipe out everyone who doesn't agree with them. Like we see even today in North Korea, that we saw in Nazi Germany and communist Russia. Like you can go all the way back. There's also one more thing as well. That I think one of the speakers brought up the church and homosexuality and whatever. And there's just one thing that I'd like to clear up there. It's that the church doesn't. It's the church teaches that it's not wrong to be gay. That homosexual activity is wrong. That it is a sin. But to be gay is not itself a sin. And and as well, we heard as well, and we were reminded as well about the church supporting giving its approval to Hitler's and Mussolini's regimes. Both as well as that, there was also an awful lot of dictatorial regimes in Latin America that the church was a rallying point for people to come against them. I think it was El Salvador is one case with Archbishop Oscar Romero, who was actually assassinated for what he was doing, and another speaker said that people are flawed. You won't find a perfect organisation anywhere. you will always find some good people and some bad people everywhere. There will be the same for Islam, for Catholicism, across the board. And well, yeah, I think I can make my point now.
Thank God for the speech, and I call, sorry, I recommend Zan right now.
I just have a few points to make. One of them is basically we do need religion. Well, let's not call it religion, let's call it a set of rules from somebody up there who I call it God in English, in Arabic, Allah, in Persian, Khuda, in different languages we call it differently. Who is that person? He's a person who created all of us and knows every single thing about his creation. So that set of rules, we need that set of rules because we are human, and no matter how smart we are, no matter how educated we are, we always do mistakes. The biggest scientist in the world always did mistakes. So we need someone who's clear of flaws, and that's God or Allah. That's why we do need the religion to guide us. And the next point is the book about how the book is just flawed, random book brought by some person. That book is full of information that's up to now some of them haven't even been discovered. For example, let's say Quran brought up by a person who didn't know how to write or how to read, and suddenly he started to read. Okay, and then in this book there is a lot of very precise information about human embryology, and that cannot be from just random human being. Just write up a book and give it to people. So there is information that's obviously made up, came from somebody who created this human being. And the other points, do not judge Muslims or Islam upon Saudi Arabian government or Iranian government. As a Muslim, do not consider Saudi Arabian government as representative to my religion. Neither the Iranian or Ahmadinejad. Ahmadinejad himself being a lot of people, Iranian Muslim are against him. Iranian Muslim are against the government. Yes, it's called Islamic Republic, but that does not represent Muslims or Islam. And they call it that because they want to cover up their mistakes. In a lot of different governments they do it. And those Iranians or Saudi Arabian governments, they do cover up a lot of flaws or mistakes by calling it Islam or in the Islamic dress, but that's not Islam. Islam, if you want to know about it, there is a book which hasn't been changed since like years. So if you want to know about Islam, do go read that book. And women are not treated as less. Do not judge Muslims upon some Muslim cultures. They do, in some cultures, they do oppress women, but that's not only in some Muslim countries, even in Europe. But do not judge those people upon Islam. Islam is different.
We'll just do 5 more speeches from the floor. So I'll call on Thomas Kenny.
I think the question, as it's been said, is a very fundamental question. There can almost be difficulty in answering it because there's so many ways you can approach it. So I'm just going to focus on specifically the interplay between secularism and morality, or more specific rules that we are all follow. Now, it's been implied that secularism is kind of a hedonistic anarchy state, when really what secularism is we still have morality, we still have issues that we need to go through. For example, the burqa ban in France, or the pornography industry, they're both very serious issues that you don't need to be religious to question, especially my interest in pornography is the regulation of the industry itself, how the women are treated, and me as a secular atheist still feel society has an obligation to make sure women aren't being exploited. So, without getting into that debate, it's a very important debate that a secular society won't just go, you know what, it's not important, we'll just ignore it, and they can do what they want, and there's no hell, so it doesn't matter. Now, the other thing, the burqa ban in France, the big question is the small, tiny minority of women who would be oppressed by allowing to wear the burqa versus women who freely choose to wear the burqa. That's another question that, even in a secular state, isn't automatically deemed, oh, we're going to ban it. It's a question that has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed carefully and prudently with ethical philosophy, utilitarianism versus hedonism, that kind of thing. And then that ultimately boils down to the question of where secularists would get their morality from if they don't believe in God at all. And that is an interesting question because, you know, there is no, most secularists, not all, don't believe there's some natural template of rules that we all must follow. It has to come from men. It has to come from social constructs that might enshrine values like compassion, fairness, equality, that kind of thing. And I think that humility in admitting that even secular states are flawed is an important advantage of secularism. Iran certainly does not represent Iranian or Muslim people. I know plenty of people who live in Iran who are opposed to the regime, but the regime will say, we get our instruction from a flawless being. We get our instruction from God. They're wrong, and lots of Muslims would contest that, but their conviction in a flawless being doesn't make themselves flawless. And that's everything.
Can I first draw your attention to an iPhone? There's plenty of us in the room with fancy iPhones and iPads and whatever. I have to tell you that my 10-year-old granddaughter knows more about this than I do. But every day, I am awestruck at what this does. Not only do I look out my window at home and look at nature, and I'm awestruck by that, I'm awestruck by this. Now, this is made by human hand. No question, I trust, of that. Made by human hand. It's awesome. I don't have to look anywhere else for it. And as for nature, that too is awesome. But I don't feel the need to look for somebody else to make that either. Can I just pick up on something somebody said over here? Yes, it's wrong to assume that Iran is an Islamic nation. as a government. It's wrong to assume that everything that the French government does is right as a secular government. It's wrong to assume that everybody in France thinks the burger should be banned. You can't make those generalisations. People are all different. Can I turn now to the speakers for a minute? Brendan, I'm disappointed that there was no speaker who gave us the benefits of Catholicism. I'm disappointed. There are good Catholics around the world do lots of good things. I think we should have heard why. Adnan, I'll just pick you up on France a bit, okay, because you're quite passionate about France. And somebody else has all done a bit of this, but I spent 10 years there recently. It's a wonderful place. It is a secular state. There's a clear separation between government and religion. You are free to believe whatever you like. If you wish to believe that there's a God or Allah who produced this, that, fine. No problem with that.
Can you buy a woman there?
Sorry?
Can you buy a woman there?
Probably. I could buy a woman in many countries around the world.
Not in Saudi Arabia.
Don't be too clear about that, because what goes on in part of Saudi Arabia. Okay. I mean, I'm not in a position to make a statement like that. I don't think you are either. And my wife would have a view on whether or not I should buy a woman anyway. France is a secular state. It's a fine state. It's based on liberty. Sorry. I'll just close with one few minutes on Michael. Thank you for a reasoned argument. It was welcome. Thank you.
The second last speaker, iERA.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I have to agree with one of the comments. Yes, religion has a tendency to make some people do evil things. I won't argue with that. What I will argue, first of all, is the discussion of faith openly has already happened in the Islamic State a few hundred years ago during the regime of the Caliph Ma'mun Rashid, if one were to read history. And democracy has begun earlier than that, during the period of the Khalifa of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, where not Abu Bakr, forgive me. No, sorry, Abu Bakr, Uthman, Ali, and Umar, where even though leaders were already elected, the bi'ah, the concept of whether or not one should follow a leader, is asked from each and every person of the state itself before a leader is proclaimed a leader. And even during that sense, the first four leaders were reluctant to become leader at that state. Among the basis, I will be speaking in the defense of an Islamic state. Among the basis of an Islamic leadership in a state is the concept of God-fearing when leading the people, to the extent every person could question what the leader does. This example can be taken during the history period of Umar al-Khattab, where when he stood up and spoke, "O people of Medina, listen to me." One of the persons stood up and said, "If you do not explain what you're wearing, where do you get what you're wearing? We will not explain. We will not hear anything from you." And Umar al-Khattab had to spend a morning to explain where he got his own clothes, so that he can lead the people, before he can lead the people. And before he rose, when he rose, he asked the people, "O people of Medina, give me your consent so that I can lead you. And correct me if I am wrong." One of the people stood up with a sword in his hand and wielded it like this and said, "If you do anything wrong, I will cut your head with this sword." Now tell me, most Muslim leaders these days do not have that kind of courage. That's one thing I think we are lacking as Muslims. So in this discussion now, we are arguing whether which is better, an Islamic state or a secular state. What I want to ask, what I want to state here is, What kind of Islamic state, Brother Adnan, are you arguing about? Because we do not have a good example of Islamic state. And in this sense, a secular state is far better for the time being. That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay. I was going to talk about like secularism in like a general sense and why I think it's a good thing. But then something happened and someone gave a speech and most people seemed to not have like paid much attention to it. Someone got up and talked about Catholicism and Islam. Why Catholicism was great and ended his speech by saying that he believed that 9/11 was completely consistent with Islamic principles. And then discussed it to a lot of people kind of probably because they weren't really listening to him. Well, I'm going to straight out and say that that person is ignorant. You are ignorant. You're also.
Did I mention Catholicism?
Christianity, whatever. And you're also a bigot. Like he's saying things which are expressly bigoted. And I think like you could take any religion in the world and have interpretations of that religion which believe like equally similar things, and they would be like equally offensive to most of the people who believe in that religion. I think it's kind of weird that we all just kind of like allowed that to be said. No one picked up on it, and no one responded to the fact that someone was saying something which was that offensive, and that like not just to Islam, like normal secular people. I'm secular and I'm agnostic. I think it's offensive to equate, as like happened in this debate, like casually equate homophobia with religion, and imply that like religion is why homophobia exists, and we have secularism to keep homophobic people away from like everything. Because that seems to imply like it's this assumption that if we get rid of religion, then suddenly homophobia will go away. That the homophobe believes that gays are an abomination, but suddenly come along for like complex cultural and social reasons. But suddenly come along and it's like, oh, religion's gone. Now I think actually the gays are okay. All my prejudices disappear. That's too easy. That's too easy an explanation for something that's incredibly difficult. The assumption that this like evil Islamic regimes, or in Saudi Arabia or whether it's Iran, will suddenly become nice if we get rid of religion. Okay? Like reveal to everyone that religion no longer exists as evil. That these regimes will suddenly become, well, like all these like elites who run these countries will suddenly go, yeah, actually, I'm going to give up power. I'm now going to open up my government to like liberal democracy will allow everyone. Like, no. The reasons why these people are in power is they use like religion as a cloak or like a veil to kind of justify their regime. They're in power for much different reasons, because it's too clear a self-gain. They can monopolize violence in their states. When you don't believe in God as I do, and as any of the atheists in this room do, the religion is a human creation. All the evil things that religion does are also human acts. Religion is only like a peripheral thing to that. Like it's like religious crimes are human crimes, and the attempt to like destroy religion in some way, like solving all of the world's problems, or saying that like suddenly humans become better, is an attempt to find really easy solutions to an incredibly complex world. People won't stop doing evil things just because we've suddenly become all secular or banished religion into like the periphery of society.
Now that the speeches from the floor are completed, we'll move on to the closing speeches from the three speakers. We'll start with Michael, then we'll go to Brendan, and then we'll go to